I call the 26th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Union to order. I now call on the Chief of Protocol of the African Union Commission to take us through the program. Madam Chief of Protocol, you have the floor now.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, Madame et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement africains. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs de délégation, distingués invités, compte tenu du temps qui nous reste à passer pour cette cérémonie d'ouverture, vous trouverez dans vos dossiers le déroulé du programme de la cérémonie d'ouverture. Pour l'instant, je voudrais vous inviter très respectueusement à bien vouloir vous lever pour l'exécution de l'hymne de l'Union africaine qui sera chanté par la chorale de l'Union africaine. Nous vous remercions. Excellences, Madame, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, distingués invités, notre avenir pour les 50 années à venir est lié au projet Agenda 2063. Une chanson a été composée pour l'Agenda 2063. Elle va être chantée tout à l'heure. J'invite la technique.
People of Africa must continue to own Agenda 2063. This positive narrative of an Africa that is rising is, however, severely battered by the terrorist attacks against defenseless and innocent civilians. Industrialization is now the theme, and move away from the export of raw materials, adding value to the raw materials, building industries, little industries in our country, It is only then that we can talk about the awakening and rising of this African giant that has been asleep for far too long.
I choose peace, you choose unity. He or she chooses prosperity. 'Cause we are African, one people, one voice. We are African, one nation, one voice. We are African.
Music.
Let the women and the youth get a chance to unleash their potential to the world. Let our leaders contribute to democracy and good governance, yeah. Pan-Africanism and strong cultural identity. Be the song we sing till we reach 2063, yeah, yeah. Pan-Africanism and strong cultural identity. Be the song we sing till we reach 2063. I choose peace. I choose peace. You choose unity. You choose unity. He or she chooses prosperity. Chooses prosperity. 'Cause we are African. One people, one voice, we are African. One nation, one voice. Respect our human rights, respect our women's rights. Silence all the guns, Africa unite. Respect our human rights, respect our women's rights. Silence all the guns, Africa unite. I say no to guns, I say no extremism, I say no to racism, I say no, to child abuse, I say no, dictatorship, I say no, inferiority, I say no, division, I say yes, to peace, I say yes, prosperity, I say yes, security, I say yes, to unity. You choose unity. He or she chooses prosperity. 'Cause we are African. One people, one voice. We are African. One nation, one voice. We are African.
Merci à la technique. Ceci, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est l'œuvre de Son Excellence Dr Robert Mugabe, président en exercice de l'Union africaine. Ceci dit, je voudrais respectueusement inviter Son Excellence le Dr Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, pour son allocution.
Thank you, Program Director. Your Excellency, President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, Chairperson of the African Union and President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, President of the Palestinian Authority, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Mr. Nabil Al-Arabi, Excellencies, former heads of government and former Secretaries General and chairpersons of the OAU and AU, Excellencies, visiting heads of state, Excellency Dr. Carlos Lepes, Executive Secretary of UNECA, Excellency Dr. Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, Excellencies, members of the Executive Council, and other ministers, representatives of the AU organs, Deputy Chairperson Erastus Mwenja and fellow commissioners, visiting ministers, CEO of NEPAD Agency, Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki, Excellencies, heads of African Regional Economic Communities and African Union Specialized Representative and Liaison Offices, Excellencies, members of the Permanent Representative Committee, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, officials from Capital and from the AU, ladies and gentlemen, Karibuni. It is my distinct honor to welcome you to this 26th session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government and to the AU headquarters in the ever-growing city of Addis Ababa. I can think of no better way of starting this important gathering than the song that we have just heard about our people's aspirations in Agenda 2063, performed by a group from Zimbabwe. Of course, they sum it up. I choose peace, you choose unity, he or she chooses prosperity, because we are Africans, one people, one voice, we are Africans. Indeed, it has been said that about Africans, when we mourn, we sing. When we celebrate, we sing. When we mobilize, we sing. We therefore know that when our artists compose songs, when our poets put it into verse, and when our painters express on canvas, it is a matter that touches our souls and hearts. So we thank the group from Zimbabwe for capturing the essence of the transformation that is required, but we'll also like to encourage artists in all our countries to embrace Agenda 2063 as it is our individual and collective aspiration. Excellencies, Africa is very diverse in every respect. Artists throughout the ages have eulogized the great diversity of our beautiful continent. They painted the majestic mountains as they navigated the water masses of our lakes and wrote about the symphonies of our waterfalls. They sang about the mighty Congo River, meandering at some points and thundering through others, about the Nile, the Zambezi, the Limpopo, the Niger, and about the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Red Sea surrounding our shores. African people compose, perform, write, recite, and sing in over 1,000 languages. Our priests and imams, rabbis, and pastors pray for Africa, mindful of our common humanity. They tell the stories of our ancient civilization and heritage, the obelisks of Aksum, the pyramids of Egypt, and of course of Sudan, the stone churches of Lalibela, the historic sites of Great Zimbabwe, the Mzab Valley, the Mapungubwe, the Ribera Grande, the Medina, the stone town of Zanzibar, the old towns of Jena, the universities and libraries of Timbuktu and Alexandria, and sing praises to the ancient kingdoms of Songhai, Mali, Ghana, and Dahomey. The great diversity of Africa is its biggest strength and its enduring splendor. We also know that we share our land with 4,700 mammals, 200,000 species of birds, and 950 amphibian species, a diversity that we ought to preserve. Deep in the bowels of our continent, African workers are slaving in the bauxite, industrial, diamonds, manganese, phosphate rock, platinum group metals, gold and zirconium mines, which represent the largest or second largest reserves of our important minerals. The miners of at least 16 countries are involved in extraction of precious metals, moreover 13 of them in diamonds, a further 6 in copper. The largest producer of coltan, essential to modern technologies such as telephones, laptops, tablets, is in Africa. Many African countries extract iron ore, while the majority of iron deposits still lie dormant in other countries. In addition to the 36 countries, we are also home to the world's largest extraction of chrome, manganese, vanadium, vermiculite, and the second largest extractors of limonite, palladium, and rutile. More than 85% of global phosphate reserves are located in North Africa. Furthermore, the majority of African countries, which is a paradox, remain in the dark. A lot of our African people do not have energy, and yet 26 of our countries produce oil and gas. 18 countries extract uranium. We also have an abundance of sun, wind, geothermal, and hydro to power renewable energies which are necessary for Africa's transformation. We have allowed for far too long the diversity of our land, soil, workforce, oceans, forests to be taken away as raw materials, thus exporting the necessary jobs and supplementary revenue streams along with the means of our development. Excellencies, a few days ago, the Executive Council, at a retreat in Mekelle, north of Ethiopia, discussed the rich diversities of our people, of our cultures, of the biodiversity, minerals, and natural resources. We came to the conclusion that indeed the Africa we have is rich. But the paradox is that the majority of African people are poor. We must therefore resolve this ironic paradox that deprives us from creating wealth and shared prosperity. Unlike other regions, Africa has the human and other resources to leapfrog development at a much faster pace. We must also utilize the splendor of our landscapes, our long coastlines, our beaches, mountains, lakes, wildlife, and heritage to expand domestic, African, and global tourism. We continue to welcome tourists from outside the continent, but for the over 1 billion Africans to visit Africa, we ask the heads of state to consider the proposed changes that the Executive Council will bring to make the free movement of Africans on our continent possible. In the climate change negotiations last year, Africa showed that it is also not indifferent to its responsibility to our planet. Even though we contribute the least to global emissions and are most affected, we are leapfrogging to promote climate-smart agriculture, renewable energy, and to save our lakes, forests, oceans, and rivers, and to ensure against natural and other disasters through the African Risk Capacity Agency. Although the final commitments of climate deal fall short of what is required, we call on all African states to move more swiftly and to make sure that we indeed unlock the wealth of our nations. Through renewed commitment to the beloved continent, 50 years after the birth of the OAU, we reaffirmed our determination to build an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven and managed by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. By adopting Agenda 2063, we pledge to act to change the present and build the Africa we want. It is our generation's mission to ensure that we build a rich Africa with prosperous people. Excellencies, during 2016, as we celebrate the Year of Human Rights with particular focus on the rights of women and girls, we must therefore speed up transformation. We must continue to place our people and their basic human rights at the center of Agenda 2063. This includes our people's rights to education, to food, nutrition, to health, to safe water, sanitation, to jobs, right to energy, and a right to peace and a safe environment, and also to do away with extremism so that indeed they can reach their full potential. In addition to the rights to association, to free speech, freedom of the media, and to the protection from discrimination on any grounds. We are making progress on these, but very slowly. We must use 2016 as a platform to advance these human rights of all inhabitants of our continent in their full diversity as we work together to create the Africa we want. We acknowledge that our united voices paint a picture of what we desire for ourselves, for future generations, and for the continent. The aspirations reflect the desire for shared prosperity and well-being, for unity and integration for the continent of free citizens and expanding horizons, where the full potential of women and youth are realized, with freedom from fear, disease, and want. It is indeed those ideals that are enshrined in Agenda 2063 that we need to translate into individual and collective action. As we reflect at this summit on how best to realize these aspirations of the African people, we resolve how to resolve the paradox which foreign ministers deliberated about at their retreat. We need to ensure that the words of wisdom from one of our forebearers resonate with us and future generations. And I would like at this point to quote those words from Emperor Haile Selassie at the founding meeting of the OAU, when he said, "Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voices of justice when it mattered, that has made it possible for evil to triumph." Close quote. By adopting Agenda 2063, we raised our voices in unison to reclaim our past and claim our future. We have refused to be inactive, indifferent, or silent about the evil of violent extremism, of gender-based violence, the suffering and misery of our people as a result of wars and conflicts. We refuse to allow injustice and the violation of human rights of individuals and groups, no matter how small they are and no matter how much their views differ from ours. Excellencies, at this stage, I'd like to say we bow our heads in acknowledgement of the AU peacekeepers who continue to be in the front line of our efforts to silence the guns on the continent, and for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. We are also not indifferent to the plight of our young people who met over the last 2 days in Addis to discuss about their own responsibilities and about what they expect from us. One of the things I just want to mention from their discussions was how they said, as youth, they want to be used as agents of change in terms of peace, because it is the youth that carries the guns. So they want to be it should be the youth that advocates peace and ensures that our societies are not ripped apart by terrorism that erode the fabric of our societies and our unity. The young men and women also want education and skills so that they become engines and drivers of our renaissance and transformation. But of course, we should try and accelerate meeting their demands, because indeed their patience is running thin, and there are growing perceptions that we may be indifferent to their plight. At this stage, I also want to say that Pope Francis, over 50 years after the words of Emperor Selassie, recently conveyed the same sentiments in his World Peace Day message when he said, I quote, "Clearly, indifference is not something new. Every period of history has known people who close their hearts to the needs of others, who close their eyes to what is happening around them, who turn aside to avoid encountering other people's problems." He continued to say, when people witness the denial of their elementary rights, such as the right to food, water, health, care, or employment, they are tempted to obtain them by force, close quotes. So, having been entrusted by our people with the duty to lead, to care, and to work tirelessly and selflessly to transform Africa and create a better life for all, as a leadership, we are not and should not be indifferent to this great responsibility. Excellencies, our pledge in Agenda 2063 is to use the diversity that is our strength as a force for peace and democracy, to transform our economies and eradicate poverty and create a better life for all Africans. I would also like to announce that on the 14 to 15 April 2016, we shall convene the inaugural economic platform in Mauritius to have a conversation with the African private sector, academics, think tanks, on the urgent issue of the huge skills gap in the continent, on the issues of industrialization, and many other issues that we face, infrastructure. Excellencies, during the 50th anniversary, we also committed to the completion of decolonization process. On Western Sahara, as Africans, we pushed for the referendum and agreed on it. But then, for 25 years, we were on pause. In 2016, we can no longer be indifferent to the position of the people of Western Sahara, who have struggled to determine their fate. 20 years is a generation who has been languishing in refugee camps, being held back from our continental march towards the Africa we want. The referendum is a promise we made. Their future in Africa depends on it. We would like to urge the Secretary General of the United Nations and the UN to help resolve this matter. Before the threat of radicalization of these young people in the camps, in the face of our indifference and inaction, become a further destabilizing force. Excellencies, to unlock the full potential of our continent, we must put an end to the pervasive culture that limits full participation of girls and women in all spheres of society. There is progress, but not at an expected level, approved in Agenda 2063. This discrimination in law, by practice, in culture, through pervasive sexist attitudes, take a diversity of forms: exclusion from land rights, gender-based violence, child marriages, which deny from opportunities for education, among other limited factors that maintain them in a second-class citizen status. Moreover, we boast an unprecedented diverse pool of human resources between the ages of 15 and 35. But 60% of those do not have jobs. The skills revolution, so necessary in the realization of Agenda 2063, making agriculture and agribusiness attractive to young men and women, their involvement in manufacturing implies that we create the jobs and equip young people with the necessary skills required to transform our economies along the value chain of all our resources. Excellencies, let me use this opportunity to extend on behalf of the AU Commission a very special welcome to the heads of state and government who have been newly elected. His Excellency President Kabore of Burkina Faso and President Magufuli of Tanzania, as well as our congratulations to the heads of state that were elected, President Ouattara of Cote d'Ivoire and President Conte of Guinea, on their re-election since the last summit. I also would like to welcome our brother, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, on the mantle of responsibility that he assumed for this very critical African institution. Before I conclude, let me thank the chairperson of the Union, His Excellency Robert Gabriel Mugabe, for the excellent cooperation and guidance offered during his term in 2015, but also to extend our gratitude to his team, especially the Foreign Minister and the Ambassador, but also thank him for the political and history classes that punctuated our deliberations and that kept us engaged. So allow me now to conclude with a call to action from the only elected woman president on our continent, President Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, when she reminded us that the size of our dreams must always exceed our current capacity to achieve them. If your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough, she said. So we choose peace, unity, and prosperity. Asanteni sana, muito obrigado, shukran, jazlan, merci beaucoup, muchas gracias, I thank you, ngiyabonga.
Nous vous remercions, Madame la Présidente. L'honneur me revient à présent d'inviter respectueusement ici Son Excellence M. Ban Ki-moon, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, pour son discours circonstancié.
Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Monsieur Robert Mugabe, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Madame la Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Madame Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Excellences, membres corps diplomatique, Monsieur le Président de Palestine, Monsieur Son Excellence Mohamed Abbas, Mesdames et Messieurs, je suis très honoré de participer une nouvelle fois au sommet annuel de l'Union africaine à Addis Ababa, comme c'est la dernière que je le ferai en tant que secrétaire général de l'ONU. L'occasion est d'autant plus importante pour moi. Ces 10 dernières années, l'Union africaine a fait de grands progrès dans la concrétisation de sa vision de paix et de prospérité. L'ONU est fière de vous avoir accompagné sur ce chemin. Je me félicite que vous ayez décidé cette année de mettre l'accent sur les droits de l'homme et en particulier sur les droits des femmes. Les droits de l'homme sont déterminants pour le maintien de la paix et de la sécurité, la lutte contre l'extrémisme violent et la promotion du développement durable. Les femmes doivent pouvoir participer pleinement à la vie de la société, notamment aux échelons les plus élevés des structures de l'État et dans le cadre des pourparlers de paix. L'ère de l'exclusion est terminée. Pour changer la dynamique, il faut investir résolument dans l'autonomisation des femmes et l'élargissement des perspectives qui leur sont ouvertes. Votre président de la Commission, Mme Zuma, incarne brillamment le leadership féminin. Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the African Union has made a number of vital commitments on human rights and women's rights, including the Maputo Protocol on the rights of women, the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, and the protocol creating the African Code on Human and People's Rights. I encourage you to make these the real by ratifying them where necessary. I urge you to move on from setting standards to what I call the 3 I's: implementation, institution building, and investment. I repeat again, implementation, institution building, and investment in real change. This would be a fitting legacy of the African Year on Human Rights. The AU Commission of Inquiry on South Sudan was a particularly significant step. I urge all parties to act on its recommendations and to make a greater use of these inquiries to address abuses. The trial of Hissène Habré in Senegal is a landmark for African justice. African governments were instrumental in establishing the International Criminal Court, the ultimate guarantor of accountability for the victims of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The ICC is an ally for African victims of these most heinous crimes. I commend those nations that are actively supporting the court's vital work and urge all to maintain their commitment to the Rome Statute. Strengthening the court will ensure accountability for victims in Africa and around the world. Leaders who stand by while civilians are slaughtered in their name must be held responsible. I'm particularly concerned that leaders in South Sudan have again failed to meet the deadline to form a transitional government. Instead of enjoying the fruits of independence, their people have endured more than 2 years of unimaginable suffering. In Burundi, I welcome your proposal to deploy human rights observers and to establish a prevention and protection mission. This crisis requires the most serious and urgent commitment from all of us. I applaud you for taking collective responsibility and acting decisively. The United Nations stands ready to support your efforts. As the Universal Declaration says, everyone, without distinction of any kind, is entitled to human rights. Peace and security, development, and human rights are won only when we commit to protecting the rights of others, regardless of their color, religion, ethnicity, political beliefs, sexual orientation, gender, age, disability, or other distinctions. This continent has endured discrimination of the worst kind. My dream is that Africa will provide a shining example to the world of tolerance, understanding, and respect for human rights. Mesdames et Messieurs, les accords historiques conclus l'an dernier portant sur le programme de développement durable et les changements climatiques à Paris représentent une victoire pour tous les habitants de la planète et pour la planète elle-même. Il n'aurait pas pu être conclu sans la participation constructive des États d'Afrique. L'engagement de limiter la hausse de la température planétaire est de la plus haute importance pour l'Afrique, le continent qui a le moins contribué au changement climatique, mais risque d'en pâtir le plus. Les 17 objectifs de développement durable cadrent parfaitement avec vos propres ambitions, telles qu'annoncées dans l'agenda 2063. Mais le plus dur reste à faire. Donner effet aux décisions prises. Il faut pour cela que les pays riches s'acquittent de leurs engagements en mettant en œuvre le dispositif de financement du développement adopté ici, à Addis Ababa. Il faut qu'ils partagent les connaissances et transfèrent les technologies voulues. Il faut aussi qu'un engagement fondamental soit pris en faveur de la bonne gouvernance et du respect des droits de l'homme. Cet engagement, nous l'avons vu se manifester lorsqu'il a fallu endiguer l'épidémie d'Ebola l'an dernier. Le peuple et les pouvoirs publics des pays touchés ont su faire ce qu'il fallait. Les présidents Condé, Koroma et Johnson Sirleaf ont fait preuve d'une remarquable sagesse politique. Merci beaucoup. La clé du succès a été la coopération entre le personnel de santé et les populations locales fondée sur une confiance mutuelle. La sécurité sanitaire repose nécessairement sur des systèmes de santé locaux vigoureux qui soient capables de résister à des épidémies de maladies mortelles et d'empêcher qu'elles se propagent. Nous devons rester vigilants et apprendre de cette expérience. distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Participation is also crucial, and elections are another test of good governance. 17 African countries will go to the ballot box this year in 2016. Leaders should never use undemocratic constitutional changes and legal loopholes to cling to power. We have all seen the tragic consequences when they do. Leaders must protect their people, not themselves. I commend those leaders who committed to stepping aside and respect constitutional term limits. I call on all to follow their example. Excellencies, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, the 2030 Agenda promises to leave no one behind and to help those farthest behind first. Who are those farthest behind? There are more than 100 million people who are displaced, dispossessed, and in humanitarian crisis. Many live here on the African continent, struggling to survive without the most basic necessities. The World Humanitarian Summit meeting, which I'm going to hold, that will be held in Istanbul on 23rd and 24th May, aims to restore hope and dignity for the most vulnerable. It will address issues from the protection of civilians to humanitarian financing. Please engage with the summit process. Your voices need to be heard. Ultimately, ending these humanitarian needs means preventing and ending conflict. The United Nations highly values your greater involvement in mediation and conflict resolution. In Somalia, I applaud the efforts of AMISOM to stabilize the country and support peaceful elections. In the Great Lake Chad Basin, I welcome your support for the collaboration between countries affected by Boko Haram's campaign of terror. Here and elsewhere, we count on our strong rights-based partnership with African governments to tackle the spread of violent extremism. Counterterrorism strategies that lack due process and respect for the rule of law will be counterproductive. Extremism flourishes when rights are violated, political space shrinks, and people are marginalized and excluded. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, enfin et surtout, je voudrais vous remercier de votre appui inébranlable aux opérations de maintien de la paix des Nations Unies. L'élaboration du cadre commun ONU-Union africaine pour un partenariat renforcé en matière de paix et de sécurité sera achevée cette année. Par intermédiaire du Bureau des Nations Unies auprès de l'Union africaine, nous travaillons déjà en étroite collaboration avec vous dans le domaine de la prévention des conflits, de la médiation et des opérations de paix. Nous sommes déterminés à renforcer ce partenariat, tandis que les États membres étudient les moyens de financer les opérations d'appui à la paix menées par l'Union africaine sur l'autorisation du Conseil de sécurité de l'ONU. Les contingents africains sont l'épine dorsale de nos opérations de paix. Ils doivent être des modèles de respect des droits de l'homme. Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, dialogue between our two security councils, our respective secretariats, and troop and police contributing countries is critical. And there must be a common understanding of the human rights standards under which peace and security operations are carried out. I encourage everyone involved to build awareness and capacity from the start. We are all deeply ashamed and horrified over the damage that has been done when peacekeepers exploit and abuse vulnerable people. The appalling acts of few undermine the dedicated work of many. The UN has a zero-tolerance policy on sexual abuse and exploitation. We must all work together to ensure accountability and transparency. Mr. Chairman of the African Union, Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, honorable ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This is my last visit as Secretary General of the United Nations to the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. It is a very meaningful moment and sentimental moment for me. Addis Ababa is one of the 3 cities in the world I have visited most often as Secretary General. It has been an enormous privilege and honor for me to work with the people, the governments, and the African leaders over the past 9 years. I will continue until the end of my term this December. I have traveled during the last 9 years, almost every country on the continent, but I'm leaving some countries still left, but I'll try to visit and meet countless inspiring African leaders and citizens. There are too many to mention, but a few stand out in my memory. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, I was moved by Dr. Denis Mukwege and his work at the Panzi Hospital to rescue women victims of terrible sexual crimes. When Ebola struck, I was impressed by the health workers who volunteered to risk their own lives for their communities. While the world was running away from the virus, they rushed in to help. I particularly appreciate the leadership of the African Union and your extraordinary efforts to mobilize in response to this threat. I will always be proud of standing with Archbishop Desmond Tutu to denounce all forms of discrimination, and I will cherish in my heart the tributes the world paid to the late President Nelson Mandela. Madiba left the world an eternal legacy of courage, humanity, and mutual respect. I have seen the wonders of Africa, natural and human, from the spectacular Victoria Falls in Zambia to the champions of democracy in Tunisia. I have seen the bravery of African peacekeepers and the success of democratically elected African leaders. Thank you very much for your outstanding support to me and the United Nations as we strive together for a better future. I will continue to give you my strongest support until I leave this privileged position and hand over to my successor. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us work together to make this world better for all, for our succeeding generations. And I thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Nous vous remercions, Excellence, Monsieur le Secrétaire général. Je voudrais à présent inviter très respectueusement Son Excellence, Monsieur Mahmoud Abbas, président de l'État de la Palestine et également président du comité exécutif de l'Organisation pour la libération de la Palestine, pour son allocution.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس روبرت موغابي، دولة رئيس وزراء أثيوبيا هيلي مريم دي سليم، أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة والدولة، معالي السيدة زوما رئيسة مفوضية الاتحاد الإفريقي، معالي السيد بان كيمون الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة، سنفتقدك سيد الأمين العام. فخامة رئيس صربيا توماسلاف نيغوليتش، صديق أفريقيا وفلسطين، دولة رئيس وزراء مملكة السويد ستيفان لوفين، صديق أفريقيا وفلسطين، الأصدقاء الأعزاء جميعاً مع حفظ الألقاب، السلام عليكم. يطيب لي بداية أن أعبر لكم عن جزيل الشكر وعميق التقدير على دعوتكم الكريمة لنا للمشاركة في قمتكم العتيدة، والتي تنعقد اليوم في دورتها 26 تحت شعار 2016 السنة الإفريقية لحقوق الإنسان، مع تركيز خاص على حقوق المرأة. هذه اللفتة الكريمة من قبلكم، والتي أصبحت عرفاً ثابتاً على أجندة قمتكم، إنما تؤكد الاهتمام الكبير الذي توليه الدول الإفريقية بالقضية الفلسطينية حتى تحقيق الحرية والاستقلال وإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي لأرض دولة فلسطين، ودعمكم ومؤازرتكم لنا عبر السنين وفي مختلف المحافل، وتأكيدها دوماً في قممكم، إنما يؤكد على اعتباركم لقضية فلسطين قضية إفريقية، وتبنيكم لها ودفاعاً عن حقوقها حتى تجسيد الدولة. ونحن على ثقة تامة بأن دول وشعوب الاتحاد الإفريقي، وهي تمضي بخطى راسخة على طريق التعددية والديمقراطية، ستحقق المزيد من الرخاء والتقدم لما فيه خير ورفاهية شعوبكم. وبهذه المناسبة نهنئ الإخوة والأصدقاء الرؤساء الذين تم انتخابهم أو أعيد انتخابهم لقيادة بلدانهم وشعوبهم، متمنين لهم جميعاً النجاح والتوفيق في مهامهم السامية. فخامة الرئيس، الأصدقاء الأعزاء، إن العالم اليوم يعاني من ظاهرة العنف والإرهاب الذي تمارسه بعض التيارات المتطرفة باسم الدين، وإننا ندين الإرهاب تحت أي صورة كانت في إفريقيا الصديقة، بل وفي كل مكان في العالم، وتحديداً تلك الاعتداءات الأخيرة في كل من مالي وبوركينا فاسو وكينيا والكاميرون ونيجيريا والنيجر والصومال، وقبلها في فرنسا وغيرها. إن فلسطين التي حظيت على الدوام بدعم ومساندة دولكم وشعوبكم لتدعم مطالب إفريقيا في إصلاح مجلس الأمن التابع للأمم المتحدة، وأن تكون لها عضوية دائمة في مجلس الأمن، وكذلك جهودها لإحلال السلام في أرجاء القارة كافة. ونحن في ذات الوقت على استعداد تام وأكيد لإرساء أسس تعاون مشترك مع اتحادكم ودوله على المستويين الجماعي والثنائي، وجاهزون لتبادل الخبرات وتوفير طواقم فنية وكوادر فلسطينية عالية التأهيل للعمل في مختلف المجالات الفنية والعملية والبحثية لتحقيق المزيد من التنمية والتطوير بما يعود على الجميع بالفائدة. وفي هذا السياق أعطينا تعليماتنا للوكالة الفلسطينية للتعاون الدولي بيكا البدء الفوري في التواصل مع دولكم لتوفير تلك الخبرات وتوفير الطواقم الفنية المطلوبة. فخامة الرئيس، الأصدقاء الأعزاء، إننا نأمل أن تكونوا قد نجحتم في تكريس وتنفيذ مقررات قمتكم السابقة والطموحة، وأن هذه القمة ستقيم ما تم إنجازه على صعيد منطقة التجارة الحرة القارية، وفي مكافحة الأمراض والقضاء عليها وتمكين المرأة، وكذلك ما رسمته قمة داكار حول التعليم العالي، وجميعها تعتبر من أهم الروافع للنهوض بإفريقيا. فخامة الرئيس، أمام تعثر العملية السياسية وإفشال الحكومة الإسرائيلية لجهود الرباعية الدولية، نحن بحاجة لمساندتكم للدفع بعقد مؤتمر دولي للسلام لتطبيق مبادرة السلام العربية وتطبيق حل الدولتين وإنشاء آلية جديدة ومجموعة عمل دولية على غرار المجموعات التي تعمل لحل أزمات المنطقة، مثل 5+1 التي حلت مشكلة إيران وغيرها. ونشيد بالجهود العربية والأوروبية وبجهود عدد كبير من الأصدقاء من أجل دعم هذا التوجه. وفي هذا السياق نرحب بالمبادرة الفرنسية التي أعلن عنها وزير الخارجية الفرنسي فابيوس يوم أمس. إننا نؤكد على أن الوضع القائم لا يمكن القبول باستمراره، وسنظل نعمل وشعبنا باستخدام الوسائل السياسية والقانونية وعبر المقاومة الشعبية السلمية لإنجاز حقوقنا الوطنية وبناء مؤسساتنا الوطنية وتطوير اقتصادنا. ولن نرضى باستمرار الاحتلال والاستيطان، ولا بمواصلة سرقة مواردنا ومصادرنا الطبيعية وحرماننا من استغلال أراضينا والاستثمار فيها. فخامة الرئيس، أصدقائي وإخواني القادة، إن المجتمع الدولي وقواه الفاعلة المؤثرة مطالب أكثر من أي وقت مضى بإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي لأرض دولة فلسطين وتوفير حماية دولية لشعبنا في وجه بطش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي، وعبر قرار ملزم من مجلس الأمن التابع للأمم المتحدة وضمن سقف زمني واضح ومحدد يضمن لشعبنا نيل حقوقه الوطنية العادلة والمشروعة وإقامة دولته المستقلة ذات السيادة وعاصمتها القدس الشرقية التي تتعرض الآن لهجمة غير مسبوقة لتغيير طابعها ومعالمها، وكذلك اعتداءات المتطرفين من الإسرائيليين بهدف تغيير الوضع التاريخي الستاتسكو في الأماكن المقدسة وبخاصة المسجد الأقصى، الأمر الذي سيحول الصراع من سياسي إلى صراع ديني نرفضه كما رفضناه عبر تاريخنا. إنما نسعى لتنفيذه هو رؤية حل الدولتين، فلسطين إلى جانب دولة إسرائيل، تعيشان في أمن وسلام وحسن جوار، وفي ظل الاحترام الكامل لميثاق الأمم المتحدة وقرارات الشرعية الدولية، وحل مشكلة اللاجئين وفق القرار 194 وتطبيق مبادرة السلام العربية والإفراج عن الأسرى. وفي هذا الإطار فإننا نجدد التأكيد على ضرورة إنشاء هذه الآلية الجديدة وعقد المؤتمر الدولي وتفعيل دور مجلس الأمن، وإننا لن نعود للمفاوضات من أجل المفاوضات، ولن نبقى وحدنا نطبق الاتفاقات الموقعة، لا بد من احترامها من قبل الأطراف التي وقعت عليها إسرائيل وفلسطين، وما دامت إسرائيل لا تحترمها فلا نستطيع أن نستمر في احترام هذه الاتفاقات. ولن نقبل أبداً بالحلول الانتقالية أو المؤقتة، وسنظل نعمل من أجل السلام، ولا يمكن أن تبقى إسرائيل فوق القانون الدولي. أما على الصعيد الداخلي فنحن مستمرون في جهودنا من أجل استعادة وحدة أرضنا وشعبنا وإقامة حكومة وحدة وطنية والذهاب لنحو انتخابات رئاسية وتشريعية في كل من الضفة الغربية وغزة والقدس. فخامة الرئيس، إن تحقيق السلام في منطقتنا من شأنه أن ينزع الذرائع من أيدي المجموعات الإرهابية المتطرفة والتي تعمل باسم الدين، والتي تستخدم اسم فلسطين والقدس وعذابات شعبنا تحت الاحتلال، تستخدمها ذريعة لإرهابها وأيديولوجيتها الهمجية والوحشية. ومن على هذا المنبر الإفريقي العظيم فإنني أجدد القول بأن الأمن والسلام لن يتحقق في منطقتنا إلا بانتهاء الاحتلال والاستيطان ومد الجسور بدلاً من الجدران، ونحن نمد أيدينا لإقامة السلام القائم على الحق والعدل، ونحن باقون هنا في أرضنا وفي وطننا الذي عمرناه وبنينا عليه هويتنا التاريخية والحضارية وإسهاماتنا الإنسانية منذ آلاف السنين، ولن نرضى عنه بديلاً. نعم، قد يستطيعون بآلة حربهم وغطرسة قوتهم قتلنا والتنكيل بشعبنا وتدمير بيوتنا ومؤسساتنا، ولكنهم لن يستطيعوا أبداً قتل إرادتنا وفكرنا وتطلعنا للعيش بحرية وسيادة وكرامة في وطننا فلسطين. ونحن إذ نثمن مواقفكم أيها السيدات والسادة الثابتة بشأن فلسطين، لعلى ثقة بأنكم ستواصلون دعمكم وتضامنكم النبيل مع شعبنا في مسيرته التحررية من الاحتلال الإسرائيلي لأرضنا ومقدساتنا. مرة أخرى فخامة الرئيس، أيها السيدات والسادة، أشكركم على دعوتكم وحسن استماعكم، وأتمنى لهذه القمة النجاح وتحقيق كل ما تصبون إليه من رخاء وتقدم وازدهار لدول وشعوب قاراتكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Tous nos remerciements, Monsieur le Président. L'honneur me revient enfin d'inviter très respectueusement pour le discours d'ouverture de cette session Son Excellence le Dr Robert Mugabe, Président en exercice de l'Union africaine.
Okay. Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Ministers, representatives of regional and international organizations, representatives of private sector institutions, distinguished delegates, and invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. I take the floor after the representative of Palestine has made a speech, wailing speech, crying speech. A repeat of what has happened before. It happened last year, it happened the year before, it happened in 1963. The voice of Palestinians being expressed here, the cry of the Palestinians reaching our ears here. For how long are we going to listen to the leader of the PLO? When shall we ever listen to the president of the state of Palestine? When shall that ever come, Mr. Ban Ban Ki-moon, you are leaving us before the settlement of the people of Palestine. They are not settled yet. They are in a state which belongs, I don't know to whom, not free. Some other people building homes in what is supposed to be their state. Almost every day, someone is killed or disturbed or arrested. When shall this ever cease? All of us here are born out of the struggle for our elders. We were all, once upon a time, in colonies, all of us. I was just trying to turn over in my mind who of you, of us, came straight from an independent state to Addis Ababa. None. We were once, if not slaves, but servants of colonialists, servants of imperialists, colonized people, disadvantaged people. Today, yes, we may say, we are free, but our ancestors were not free. There are blacks across the Atlantic. There are others who lie deep down the sea. Skeletons have vanished. The oceans have worked on their skeletons. Our forefathers, as they were being dragged, going across. And across to a country where they labored, toiled, and died for. They are no better. There is Obama today, yes. What is he? What is he? A voice is made to speak their language, to act their act. And not our act, but their act. They are still superiors. The blacks go to Harlem. When you're in New York, you'll shed tears. Today, there is no education for all, no health for all. Blacks in the streets. And nobody seems to talk about it. But they instead still want to talk about us. They are everywhere in Africa. if not physically, but through NGOs, through spies, through pretenders who come to us and say they are here in Africa to assist us. Even in groups, armed groups on some of our territories. What help is coming from them? Regime change. We are supposed to be free and independent, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Supposed to be free, the 54 countries. We come to the United Nations, it's ceremonial. Every year, September, we are there. We pay lots of money to go there. And to the General Assembly, we make speeches, we go back home, year in, year out. But the bosses in the Security Council say, you shall never have the powers that we have as permanent members. And we have asked and asked and asked. And asked and asked. Reform the Security Council. I want to tell you, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, you are a good man. You are a good man. But of course, we can't make you a fighter. That's not what your mission was. We will fight a fight for our own identity, for our own integrity and personality as Africans. We are Africans. If we decide, as we shall certainly do so one of these days, that down within the United Nations, we are not members of it, others are real members of it, we are artificial members of it, and we can't continue to be artificial members of it. How can only a handful of people, in fact it's only America and the Europeans, those who say they are white-skinned, because they are white-skinned, anybody else who is not like us shall not have the power and strength, integrity that we have. If the United Nations is to survive, we must be equal members of it. Equal members who can say, when we go to the body, that we are now speaking truly as members with a voice that's understood, respected, and honored. But no, that's not it. We met in Swaziland some years back to discuss the reform of the United Nations, especially the Security Council. And we came up with KwaZulu consensus. We have said we want 2 permanent members with a veto if the veto is to continue, although we don't like that creature called the veto. But if the veto is to be retained, those members must also have the veto. If the veto is to be abolished, fine. They shall be like others. But no, 2 members, 54 countries here. This is the body of respected people, the body of Africa. So I wonder whether you have told them that we also are humans. Tell them that we are not ghosts, that we also belong to the world, and the world part of the world called Africa. And Africans shall no longer tolerate a position of slavery. Slavery by any other name, by denial of right, slavery by being treated in a manner we regard as not equal to the manner in which they treat themselves. I hope you will hear from us on this issue of the reform of the United Nations. But you have done a good job for us. You have visited our countries, you have wept with us where disease has visited us, whether it was Ebola or some other, where calamities have occurred, where fights have taken place, where terrorism also has affected us. We thank you for that concern as a human being. And so that distinguishes you from others. Of course, you don't come from those countries. We know where you come from. Your Excellencies, it is my honor and privilege to express profound gratitude to the government and people of Ethiopia for the traditional warm reception extended to us since our arrival in Addis Ababa. We are very grateful for the excellent facilities placed at our disposal, which should no doubt inspire us to a successful 26th ordinary session of the Assembly of the African Union. Your Excellencies, in line with our aspiration to silence the guns by 2020, matters of peace and security were high on our agenda in 2015. Despite new and recurring challenges, our continent witnessed some notable successes, and overall there was political stability. Notwithstanding the spirited attempts to derail transitional processes by negative elements in Burkina Faso and the Central African Republic, the people of these 2 brotherly countries remained resolute and committed to constitutionalism. To them we say congratulations and well done. May I also congratulate several AU member states which in 2015 successfully held parliamentary and presidential elections. Once again, we have amply demonstrated that Africa has come of age and that democracy is alive on our continent. The ongoing conflicts in South Sudan, Libya, Burundi, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Somalia, and others remain a source of concern for our organization. Even there, we have of late witnessed some glimpses of hope for peace which deserve our support. While we need to redouble our efforts in search of peaceful solutions to these conflict situations, we at the same time urge our brothers and sisters in the affected member states to put the interests of their countries above all other considerations and give peace a chance. Terrorism has become a major scourge and challenge in many parts of Africa, thus negatively affecting the peace and safety of our people. This evil phenomenon threatens to reverse the gains made in the integration and development of our continent. The challenge for us all is to combine our efforts to fight and defeat terrorism in all its manifestations. Your Excellencies, the creation of the African Peace and Security Architecture amply demonstrated Africa's determination and commitment to ridding the continent of conflict and instability. Central to the AU security architecture is the African Standby Force and its rapid deployment capability. The success of Amani Africa 2 field exercises, which were held in South Africa in October-November 2015, means that we now can deploy the Africa Standby Force as a tool for conflict prevention. This should be no doubt a big step towards the goal of silencing the guns by 2020. Your Excellencies, the Agenda 2063 and the first 10-year plan marked this giant step towards the Africa we want. But the Agenda 2063 is only a first step. Much more remains to be done for our vision to become a reality. We therefore need to collectively work with a sense of urgency to finalize the funding, follow-up, and monitoring mechanisms so as to enhance the successful implementation of our plan. In this regard, we look forward to the consideration by this Assembly of the Progress Report on the implementation of Agenda 2063 and, in particular, the Africa Resource Mobilization Strategy, which has been developed by the Commission. Your Excellencies, in all our endeavors to implement this important roadmap, we should never lose sight of the fact that the Agenda 2063 is a people's agenda. It is owned by and belongs to the people. of Africa. The popularization of this blueprint at the continental, regional, and national levels is therefore of paramount importance and a responsibility for us all. Equally important is the task of domesticating the plan, ensuring that its synergization and synchronization with our national and regional plans takes place. I am happy to note that many of our countries working together with the Commission have already taken significant steps in this regard. Your Excellencies, you will recall that our Assembly took a principled decision to progressively meet from our own resources the bulk of our budget in order to ensure and safeguard the ownership of the African agenda and processes by Africans. To this end, we decided that by the end of the next 5 years, beginning in 2016, we must meet 100% of our operations budget, 75% of our programs budget, and 25% of the peace and security budget. The implementation of this important decision would be a clear demonstration of our will and commitment to our organization. The African Union, of our organization, the African Union, and will enable Africa to occupy its rightful place in the community of nations. While we acknowledge and are indeed grateful for this assistance received from our partners, this must only complement our efforts, our own efforts. It is therefore imperative that we prioritize and pay our member state subscriptions timeously. Your Excellencies, in these past months, we have witnessed the plummeting of the prices of primary commodities and the concomitant slowdown in the growth and development of our economies. This has negatively impacted on our capacity to eradicate poverty, create employment, particularly for our youths, as well as improving the livelihoods of our peoples. We therefore must not spare any effort to push for the industrialization of our countries and regions, with value addition and beneficiation at the core. The implementation of the African industrialization strategy should be prioritized. Your Excellencies, the past year has also witnessed enhanced cooperation between Africa and its strategic partners. In this regard, the third Africa-India Summit and the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, were successfully convened in India and South Africa, respectively. These partnerships fora serve as important platforms to advance our development agenda and to further strengthen our international strategic partnerships with a view to ensuring mutual benefit and win-win cooperation. Your Excellencies, Climate change has become a real threat to our very existence. There are justified worries over the humanitarian impacts of the strongest El Nino on record, which is increasing the threat of hunger and disease in several parts of our continent. Drought and flood conditions threaten the livelihoods of around 30 million people. It is in this context that we welcome the comprehensive climate agreement that was reached in Paris, France. Although Africa did not get everything it wanted, we need to commend the Africa Group and the G20, the G77, and China for very ably representing us throughout the conference under very difficult circumstances. The inclusion in the agreement of the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities is a positive outcome. Your Excellencies, to improve the way we conduct our business in the African Union, beginning last June, we resolved to begin our summits, as we have done today, in closed session, with an agenda limited to strategic issues of integration, peace and security, governance, and the financing of our union. This should allow us to deal with issues in a more focused and robust manner. We also strongly believe that a well-resourced, appropriately trained and highly motivated commission will help us deliver better and faster. We need to have a commission that is lean, effective, and efficient. As we proceed with the restructuring, we must uphold the cardinal principle of equitable geographical distribution of the Commission posts, without compromising, of course, on quality. This ensures that the Union belongs to all of us. Your Excellencies, with regard to the need to adhere to common African positions, it would be remiss of me not to mention disturbing dissonance among member states on the unresolved decolonization of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Under no circumstances should the unjustifiable colonization of a legitimate and full member of the Union be condoned. Allowing history to be rewritten in order to justify the blatant occupation and colonization of a sister country goes contrary to the decolonization ethos of our founding fathers. Our saying, we are 14, deriving from colonies, but of course we still have Sahrawi. Sahrawi is a debt we owe to the people of Sahrawi. When shall we pay that debt? When shall we decide that the people of Sahrawi become independent? Our charter says the colonial boundaries that we found in 1963 shall be the boundaries we respect. We are all free. Let the people of Sahrawi also be free. With regard to the need to adhere, allowing history to be rewritten in order to justify the blatant occupation and colonization of a sister country, as I said, is what is happening in regard to the Palestinians. And we should also call upon our cooperating partners, especially those with whom we have standing partnerships, to respect our AU, African Union position on Sahrawi Republic within the context of our partnership frameworks. Similarly, I wish to express my disquiet over the developments leading to the EU summit on migration that was held in Valletta, Malta. Allow me to recall that we had reached an understanding with our friends in Europe. I stammer to say friends, but nevertheless, I managed to pronounce the words. Friends in Europe, that we would have a summit to address the issue of migration, which is of common concern to all of us. Alas, at the last minute, we had only a few of us from Africa would be invited. While I fully appreciate that we are affected differently by migration, there is need for a collective approach for the common good of all of us. Let the common interests of Africa unite us, please. Unite us on this and other global issues as well. For, as that song by that group of singers rang, united we stand, divided we fall. So on this one we were divided. Let's not be divided. The principles of unity, solidarity, and freedom bequeathed to us by our forebears from the bedrock of organization, that those principles must continue to be our principles. We wouldn't be here if 1963 had not occurred. And I can tell you, even as we, as freedom fighters then, sought assistance in the South, it was not just in the South. I remember about 1978-79, moving to Guinea-Conakry, to Senegal, before getting to the OAU, just pleading for assistance humanitarian, if it could be given us, assistance military, for military nation, if we could get it. And we were getting it here and there, those who could give. Algeria, training. Egypt of NASA, lots of training. And as 1963, the inaugural conference took place, the leaders came from all these countries. Ben Bella had won his struggle, the Algerian struggle of France. France had, after all the other Francophone countries had got their independence, Algeria was denied that independence by de Gaulle. Why? Because Algeria, he said, is part of France. Algeria, part of France. Algeria, part of France. Mediterranean Sea, yes, he said, Algeria cannot choose as others chose to say yes or no. No choice was given it because it was regarded as part of France. That's why the Algerians took to arms. And that's why Ben Bella could come. And we sang glory to him. And of course, he regarded that the independence of Algeria was not complete until the independence of all the other countries, including South Africa, was also acquired, until those other countries were also free. And Ben Bella, we still remember what he said. He put aside his speech. He said, "Let us die a little for South Africa. Let us die a little for South Africa." And we used to call it in our camps the die a little speech. A contribution made. So they are Gruma. Ghana is not free until the rest of Africa is free. That spirit and those principles, unity, dedication, commitment, sacrifice, the givenness, that struggle is our struggle, should remain with us. That suffering of people in Liberia is our suffering. We should have said that. The people dying because of Boko Haram in Nigeria are our people as well. And I tell you, we knew Nigeria as we knew our palms, because we used to go there. We used to have lots of cadres trained there in Kanu. We used to go to Kaduna, lots of other places. And Nigeria gave in 1978, I think, 78, yes, when they had not been paying their subscriptions because there was a difference in the OAU on the issue of Biafra, so they had decided not to pay subscriptions to the OAU. But then, when they decided to pay the subscription was now £7 million or dollars. But when they paid it back, they said it should not go just into the coffers of the OAU. It must be used for purposes of training, military training of Zimbabwean cadres. So, Gomo and I and Brigadier Gaba used to go to the camp to the base where this group of our cadres was being trained. That is a contribution we made. I could give you other forms of contribution made. I will be, after this, I'll be talking about Hashim Bita, who headed the Liberation Committee established in Tanzania. And the Liberation Committee was meant to source arms for us. And all our liberation committees were there. From Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, Cabral. We were all in Tanzania. So there it is. Africa, wanting the Africans who were still under the burden of colonialism to be free. And that is why I have great respect for all of us. To me, you come to my country, it's your country. I go to your country, it's also my country. You can't chase me. You can't chase me and I can't chase you. That's it, the African spirit. We had to fight for it also. You had to starve for it, to sacrifice for it. And now you get some people still saying, because we are white and you're black, we can't give you the honor of equality in the Security Council. Nonsense. That should stop. Mr. Bakimun, just tell them for the last time, just as a message that you have heard for the last time from here, that there should be real equality in the Security Council. We can't just be coming to the General Assembly to make empty, hollow speeches and go back home. Nobody takes care of all the concerns we express. No. And anyway, the headquarters is actually of the United Nations is misplaced. Where do you have most of the people? You have 1.2 million people in India, 1.3 in China, and Africa, we are getting to nearly 1 billion also. Now put us together, just these three, and then put those with the white faces and pink noses. Put them together as against us. How many are they, even man to a man? And do we allow that group should continue to harass us even in our independent countries? Regime change, Mugabe should not be there, we want someone else. The Queto was telling me the other day that he had been told that, oh no, your party, Chama Cha Mapinduzi, had been in power for too long. You must now allow another party also to take over. Is that democracy? And that was coming from Europe. Tell them to shut their mouths. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, I am about to hand over the collective stewardship of this august body. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to you, my colleagues, for the support you so generously rendered me and my country during our chairmanship of this continental body. I thank you immensely. I was very happy. I visited a number of countries, sometimes just to attend inauguration ceremonies, sometimes also to be present as I was in Mali at a signing ceremony, and where I was asked to come, as in Tanzania at the youth conference there, and in several others. I did travel quite a lot, and I enjoyed it very much to be with the people and to be with the young people. And our message, of course, is always that today is our day. Tomorrow, you, the young people, is your day also. And we, the fathers of today, we, the mothers of today, we men are also with you women. Together we must work for our children and groom them up. See they are healthy, see they are educated, see they have skills, and see they are ideologized. They know the history of their country. They are proud to be Africans. So let's bring our youth up. So it was really an honor to guide the work of our organization in the past year and make our own humble contribution towards building the Africa we want. In conclusion, I would like to reaffirm my unwavering support and that of my government to the incoming person, to my brother of Chad. I am confident that the Assembly will lend the incoming chair his full support. So, the President of Chad, we wish you well. We wish you well, and whatever support you would want from me, I will still be there. I'll still be there until God says, come. Then I'll go and join the others. But as long as I'm still alive, I'll still have the punch. So I want to thank you, and thank you a lot. I want also to thank the Commission, Mai Zuma, and your Commission and Commissioners for all the support that they gave me and our togetherness as we looked forward together, and we tried to put things together. So I say forward ever, backwards never. Asante sana. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias. Tatenda siyabonga.
Merci, Excellence, Monsieur le Président Robert Mugabe. Nous allons procéder à la remise des publications Hashim Mbita par le président sortant de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Dr Robert Mugabe, à la présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Son Excellence Dr Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
Okay. I come back for a very short ceremony. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in my capacity as Chair of the African Union, it is my singular honor to present to you, Excellencies, the publication on the, I quote, the Southern African National Liberation Struggles, popularly known as the Hashim Mbita Project. It was a project that was researched on the fights that were done. You know, these were the most difficult fights in Africa under the Liberation Committee. As you are aware, Your Excellencies, most countries in Southern Africa achieved independence through protracted armed struggles. To give the much-needed impetus to the struggle, the region received material, moral, and political support from the then Organization of the African Union, the OAU, and individual countries of the continent and beyond. In order to immortalize this rich history of our struggles in 2004, the SADC heads of state and government unanimously agreed to embark on a research project to document the liberation struggles in Southern Africa. This project was led by an illustrious son of Africa, the late Brigadier General Hashim Mbita, a Tanzanian national, the last and longest-serving executive secretary of the Liberation Committee of the Organization of African Unity from 1974 to 1992, when he passed on, and he passed on the 26th of April last year. He had accomplished his mission. May his soul rest in peace. The Hashim Mbita Project will immortalize a legacy for future generations, not only from Southern Africa, but the entire continent and beyond. Together, the 9 volumes constitute the overall outcomes of our project, the Southern African National Liberation Struggles. Your Excellencies and dear colleagues, as SADC leadership, we thought it proper and most appropriate for this collective history memoir of the liberation struggle in Southern Africa to be handed over to the African Union so that they can be accessible to all the citizens of our continent whose commitment, dedication, and sacrifices brought us the freedom we enjoy today in Southern Africa. With these few words, let me take this opportunity to formally present the Southern African National Liberation Struggles publication to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, for custody here at the African Union headquarters. Once again, I thank you for your attention. Merci beaucoup, muchas gracias. Tatenda siabonga.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, comme indiqué sur le programme, je vais inviter le doyen des ambassadeurs africains, Son Excellence Alfred Jacques Eboulé du Cameroun, pour la publication des résultats de la consultation sur l'élection du nouveau bureau de l'Union africaine.
Ça va, je peux y aller? Je peux y aller. C'est ouvert, hein, le micro. Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Mesdames, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement de l'Union africaine, Madame la Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Monsieur le Secrétaire général des Nations unies, Mesdames, Messieurs les chefs de délégation, Mesdames, Messieurs, c'est un grand honneur et un privilège pour moi de vous annoncer les résultats des consultations qui ont abouti à la désignation des futurs membres du bureau de la conférence de notre Union pour l'année 2016. Le bureau ainsi formé sera dirigé par un président qui dirigera toutes les délibérations de l'organisation continentale jusqu'au 30 janvier 2017. Il sera assisté dans ses fonctions par un rapporteur. Excellences, permettez-moi de préciser qu'au terme des dispositions pertinentes du règlement intérieur de votre conférence, le Bureau aura pour responsabilité d'aider la conférence de l'Union à adopter le programme et fixer les priorités annuelles de l'organisation continentale. Il en est ainsi de l'agenda 2063 que votre auguste Assemblée à adopter comme le cadre devant guider le développement socio-économique des peuples du continent pour les Le succès de votre mandat dépendra de l'activité des organes délibérants de l'organisation, mais aussi de l'engagement des États membres, de l'efficacité de la Commission de l'Union africaine et de tous les autres organes et agences d'exécution des programmes de l'Union. Évidemment, votre bureau saura pouvoir compter sur le plein soutien des doyens régionaux et du doyen lui-même. Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, après ces propos introductifs, permettez-moi d'avoir le plaisir et l'insigne honneur de vous présenter le bureau. Le président en exercice de l'Union vous a déjà communiqué le nom du président, son Excellence le président Idriss Déby Itno, président de la République du Tchad. Au poste de premier vice-président, son Excellence M. Yahi Boni de la République du Bénin. Au poste de deuxième vice-président, son Excellence M. Paul Kagame, président de la République du Rwanda. Au poste de troisième vice-président, l'honorable Hamida Omar de l'État de Libye. Au poste de rapporteur, le président de l'Union sortant, son Excellence Robert Gabriel Mugabe de la République du Zimbabwe. Vos acclamations traduisent l'enthousiasme avec lequel vous accueillez ce nouveau bureau. Nous venons ainsi d'achever l'élection du nouveau bureau de votre conférence. Toutes mes respectueuses et différentes félicitations à tous les membres du bureau de la conférence. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Monsieur le Doyen. Permettez-moi maintenant d'inviter très respectueusement Son Excellence Monsieur Idriss Déby Itno, président de la République du Tchad et président entrant de l'Union, à bien vouloir se diriger au podium pour la passation de pouvoir. Je voudrais à présent respectueusement inviter Son Excellence le président entrant de l'Union africaine à bien vouloir prononcer son discours d'acceptation.
Monsieur le Président en exercice sortant de l'Union africaine, doyen, le chef d'État Robert Mugabe, je suis sûr que tout le monde en conviendra que si c'est succédé à Robert Mugabe, ce n'est pas aisé. Je n'aurai ni le verbe, ni le langage franc et direct, ça pique souvent, ni aussi ses capacités, mais nous essaierons de faire de notre mieux, rassurez-vous. Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Madame la Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, c'est un immense plaisir que vous faites au Tchad et à son peuple en me nommant président en exercice de l'Union africaine pour l'année 2016. Je remercie mes collègues d'Afrique centrale qui m'ont proposé à cette haute et noble fonction, et vous tous ici qui venez d'entériner leur choix. J'accepte cette mission avec plaisir, mais aussi avec une pointe d'angoisse, tant la charge qui m'incombe désormais est lourde et pleine de défis. Permettez-moi de rendre hommage à mon illustre prédécesseur et frère, l'infatigable militant de l'indépendance et de la dignité de l'Afrique, Robert Mugabe. Il a su mener, pendant sa présidence, notre organisation avec passion et détermination et a atteint des objectifs qui lui étaient assignés. Je lui dis félicitations. Mesdames et Messieurs, je voudrais vous dire tout de suite que je n'ai ni la prétention, ni les moyens, et encore moins le temps de changer le cours des événements en Afrique. À défaut de changer les choses, j'ai au moins cette latitude de vous dire ce que je crois utile pour l'Afrique et pour les Africains, même si cela doit se réaliser dans le très long terme. Fort de cet énorme potentiel humain et économique, notre continent s'est de plus en plus imposé dans le système international. Il est au centre de toutes les convoitises, que ce soit sur le plan politique ou sur le plan économique. Nous devons tirer collectivement le meilleur bénéfice de cette position. Dans cette perspective, il nous faut nous organiser pour défendre ensemble nos intérêts. Il nous faut nous adapter à la nouvelle dynamique mondiale où la solidarité et la complémentarité sont les meilleures armes contre la pauvreté et les menaces transnationales de toutes sortes. L'Union africaine est et demeure le creuset de cette solidarité. Nous l'avions bâtie sur le centre de l'Organisation de l'Unité africaine afin qu'elle impulse cette dynamique de l'unité, de l'intégration humaine, politique et économique. Mais force est de constater qu'elle n'a pas encore répondu à toutes nos attentes. À sa décharge, je dirais que nous, les États, ne lui avons pas donné les moyens de réaliser les objectifs que nous lui avons assignés parce que nous ne voulons rien céder de nos souverainetés respectives. L'union que nous appelons de tous nos vœux serait vide de sens si les Africains n'ont pas le sentiment d'appartenir à un même espace géographique, si les Africains ne circulent pas librement, s'ils ne sont pas détenteurs d'un passeport unique, s'ils ne s'entraident pas. Notre organisation fonctionne toujours comme il y a 20 ou 30 ans. Nous nous réunissons trop souvent. Nous parlons toujours trop. Nous écrivons toujours beaucoup. Mais nous n'agissons pas assez et parfois pas du tout. Nous subissons plus les événements que nous les anticipons. Nous attendons toujours tout de l'extérieur. Mes chers frères et sœurs, chefs d'État, cela doit impérativement changer si nous voulons changer le cours de l'histoire du continent. Et c'est pour cette raison que la restructuration de l'Union africaine engagée, elle aussi, depuis près d'une décennie, doit être soutenue et accélérée. Pour ma part, je vais m'y employer et j'espère compter sur votre soutien pour que cette réforme aboutisse. De mon point de vue, il est inadmissible que le fonctionnement de notre organisation ainsi que certaines de ses activités soient financées par l'extérieur, alors que l'étude lancée depuis plusieurs années, sur les sources alternatives de financement, censées mettre un terme à cette dépendance piétine et s'enfonce dans les débats sans fin. Chers frères et sœurs, que ce soit sur la question des droits de l'homme, qui est le thème central du présent sommet de l'agenda 2063 et de son plan d'action décennal. Tout ce que nous entreprendrons maintenant et même un peu plus tard sera vain et sans portée réelle si nous laissons se perpétuer en Afrique les crises. Des crises parfois insupportables. Soudan du Sud, Libye, Somalie, Burundi, Sahel, bassin du lac Tchad. Nous devons, par la diplomatie ou par la force, selon la nature et l'ampleur de la crise, mettre un terme à cette tragédie de notre âge. Nous devrions nous engager dans ce sens. Et nous ne pouvons pas avancer, ni parler de développement si une partie du corps du continent est malade. Par ailleurs, nous devons être les acteurs principaux dans la recherche des solutions aux crises africaines et non des observateurs passifs des solutions élaborées ailleurs, comme ce fut le cas en Libye. S'agissant justement de ce pays qui nous est cher et qui vit une terrible tragédie, je préconise que l'Afrique prenne une initiative à travers un comité de chefs d'État soutenu par l'ONU en vue de parachever les efforts faits par l'envoyé spécial du secrétaire général des Nations Unies. La montée en puissance du terrorisme dans le monde et en Afrique, en particulier, nous commande d'unir nos forces. La solidarité face à ces phénomènes ne doit pas être que verbale. Nous devons être soudés dans l'action comme dans la réflexion. C'est l'occasion de remercier ici tous nos partenaires bilatéraux et multilatéraux qui nous apportent un appui précieux dans cette lutte que nous menons contre le terrorisme. Étant entendu que le terrorisme se nourrit de la pauvreté, notre organisation doit consacrer l'essentiel de ses efforts sur les régions du Sahel, de la Tchad et de la Corne de l'Afrique, qui constituent le terreau fertile à l'expansion du phénomène terroriste. Une fois de plus, je réitère mon appel à l'Afrique afin qu'elle prenne son destin en main, qu'elle assure elle-même sa sécurité. Elle a les moyens humains et matériels qui peuvent être mobilisés dans le cadre de la CARIC et de la Force africaine à l'entente. La réalité, c'est qu'il manque cette volonté politique de donner corps à cette force. Chacun de nous doit méditer sur cette grave atteinte à notre dignité. En plus de l'insécurité, l'Afrique est la plus grande victime du règlement climatique avec la sécheresse dans le Sahel et le phénomène El Niño en Afrique orientale et australe. À ce sujet, je me réjouis de la position commune adoptée par le continent récemment à la COP 21. Nous insisterons pour que la mise en œuvre des décisions qui en sont issues se fasse avec célérité. Le comité des chefs d'État sur le changement climatique y veillera. Mesdames et Messieurs, l'Afrique de 2016 doit être considérée comme un continent à part entière, fort de plus d'1 milliard d'âmes, qui a tant donné à l'humanité, mais qui a également tant subi. Il faut donc lui rendre justice, mais surtout lui donner la place qu'elle mérite dans le système international. La réforme des Nations Unies, et en particulier celle du Conseil de sécurité, doit s'inscrire dans cette logique. C'est un sujet qui est très ancien, le doyen Robert Mugabe en a beaucoup insisté. Vous l'avez suivi. Il a même fait une historique plein d'enseignements. Cependant, nous devons faire en sorte que cette réforme s'accélère parce que nous ne pouvons plus nous complaire dans cette injustice et parce que nous voulons exercer notre droit légitime à décider de notre destin. Mesdames et messieurs, le changement que nous voulons voir s'opérer au sein de la Commission de l'Union africaine est tributaire des changements à mener dans nos propres États. Il nous faut modifier notre manière de penser et de gérer nos difficultés, notre manière de pratiquer la coopération. Il nous faut changer nous-mêmes. Nous devons penser africain, agir africain, parler africain et pourquoi pas consommer, s'habiller et se distraire africain. Ce faisant, nous recréerons une personnalité et un esprit africain qui, malheureusement, se dilue progressivement dans la mondialisation. Nous contribuerons également à booster l'économie africaine et à diminuer sensiblement le chômage de nos jeunes. Tout cela paraît utopique, mais tout cela est faisable dans le long terme, à condition que nous jetons les bases de ces changements dès maintenant. Mesdames, Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Mesdames, Messieurs, distingués invités, avant de terminer, je voudrais vous faire part d'un fait vécu au Tchad en rapport avec le thème de notre conférence, à savoir les droits de l'homme, avec un accent particulier sur les droits des femmes. Il y a quelques semaines, une jeune femme manipulée par la secte Boko Haram a été arrêtée dans la région du lac Tchad, alors qu'elle s'apprêtait à faire exploser la charge qu'elle portait sur elle. Interrogée sur les raisons de l'acte terroriste qu'elle s'apprêtait à commettre, la jeune femme a déclaré: « On m'a dit qu'après cela, j'irai au paradis. Et alors, j'aurai la latitude de choisir moi-même mon époux. » Voilà, c'est simple. Raison pour laquelle elle est très pressée pour aller au-delà et choisir son époux, parce que sur Terre aujourd'hui, ce n'est plus possible. Cette terrifiante confession traduit le désarroi dans lequel se trouvent aujourd'hui des millions de femmes africaines soumises aux violences de toutes sortes, à l'arbitraire de certaines pratiques rétrogrades. Les droits de l'homme que nous devons promouvoir consistent aussi à changer le destin de ces femmes. Mais nous ne pouvons le faire par des discours ou des rapports. Il nous faut agir concrètement. C'est ce à quoi j'invite les États afin que 2016 marque effectivement un pas positif dans le sort des millions de femmes du continent. Je vous remercie.
Nous vous remercions, Monsieur le Président. Comme indiqué sur le programme de la cérémonie d'ouverture, nous avons la traditionnelle remise de prix Kwame Nkrumah. Je voudrais de ce fait inviter le modérateur de la séquence, Son Excellence Martial de Paul Ikunga, commissaire en charge des sciences humaines, pour la suite.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président Idriss Déby Itno, Président en exercice de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellence, Madame Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur Ban Ki-moon, Secrétaire général des Nations unies, Mesdames et les chefs des délégations, distingués invités, excellents chers collègues commissaires, distingués invités d'honneur et récipiendaires du prix continental Kwame Nkrumah. Mesdames et messieurs, à tout seigneur, tout honneur étant rendu. Je voudrais, ici et maintenant, au nom de toute la communauté scientifique africaine, et vous remercier une fois de plus pour l'intérêt et la place qui a été accordée à cette cérémonie solennelle de remise du prix scientifique continental africain Kwame Nkrumah pour l'édition 2015. Le prix Kwame Nkrumah est décerné à 3 niveaux: national, régional et continental. Et il a pour objectif de récompenser les scientifiques africains, hommes et femmes, qui se sont distingués pour leur contribution au développement africain à travers leurs travaux dans les domaines de la recherche et la formation en matière de sciences de la vie et de la terre, et aussi des sciences de base, de technologie et innovation. Notre cérémonie de ce jour sera marquée par l'intervention de Madame la Présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, puis la remise du prix par le Président en exercice de l'Union africaine, dont un chèque de $100 000, suivi du mot de remerciement des lauréats. Sans plus tarder, je voudrais inviter la présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine à bien vouloir prendre la parole pour son mot de circonstance. Madame la Présidente,
thank you very much. I will not say much because it's late in the day, but I'll just announce the winners, acknowledging the importance of science and technology in the development of the continent, agriculture, infrastructure, industrialization, and it is key for Agenda 2063. So the winners for this year is Professor Tibelo Nyokong from South Africa and Professor Umzureki Linus Opera from Nigeria, who will each be awarded with a token of $100,000 and hope that their work will inspire tens of thousands of other young African scientists. Congratulations.
I will present them and call them.
Yeah, okay.
En appelant les lauréats à se présenter devant votre auguste assemblée, j'ai maintenant la redoublable tâche de vous présenter les heureux lauréat de l'année 2015. Tâche lourde parce qu'il me faut résumer en 1 minute pour chacun les parcours si denses de scientifiques dont les travaux sont mondialement connus. Mais je vous invite à parcourir les plaquettes qui font leur présentation. J'appelle donc le professeur Nyonkom Tebolo, qui est originaire de la République d'Afrique du Sud. Allez-y. Enseignant-chercheur, elle détient une chaire de professeur en chimie médicinale et de nanotechnologie de l'Université de Rhodes. Elle a entrepris des recherches sur les applications des colorants dans la détection et le contrôle de la pollution et de la nanotechnologie dans le traitement du cancer. Elle a publié plus de 550 manuscrits, y compris les brevets, un livre et des chapitres de livres. Elle a reçu de nombreux prix de reconnaissance pour recherche, dont la médaille de l'UNESCO pour sa contribution au développement des nanotechnologies, le prix lauréat de l'UNESCO pour les femmes dans la science, la médaille de l'Académie des sciences des pays en développement, mais aussi la médaille d'or de l'Institut sud-africain. Elle a été invitée à faire partie du groupe d'experts de haut niveau institué par le secrétaire général des Nations Unies et dédié aux pays les moins avancés. Elle a été nommée par IT New Africa dans le top 10 des femmes les plus influentes dans le domaine de la science et la technologie en Afrique. Elle a été inclue dans le Centre national pour la recherche et l'évolution humaine, situé à Burgos, en Espagne. Je voudrais m'arrêter là, cette énumération, en signalant qu'en 2004, le président Thabo Mbeki lui avait conféré l'ordre de Mapungwe et la CBS l'avait désignée la femme de l'année dans le domaine de la science et la technologie en 2004. Je voudrais maintenant appeler le professeur Umezurikwe Linus Opera, qui est originaire du Nigeria. Il est professeur en génie post-agricole, professeur émérite de l'Université de Stellenbosch. La forte demande internationale de son expertise technique l'a amené à parcourir le monde entier. En œuvre des programmes pays de formation post-récolte dans de nombreux pays et à travers les continents. Il y a en réalité un véritable globe-trotteur par excellence pour la science, la technologie et l'innovation. Une récente étude indépendante sur l'impact socio-économique de l'un des programmes de recherche du professeur Opara a concerné l'amélioration des techniques post-récolte des fruits de grenade en Afrique du Sud à travers l'Université de Stellenbosch et est maintenant le leader mondial dans la technologie de recherche post-grenade. Comme je vous ai dit, il n'était pas facile de résumer leur savoir-faire, car avec de tels palmarès, l'attribution du prix Kwame Nkrumah de l'Union africaine pour la science, la technologie et l'innovation et le couronnement, en même temps qu'une invitation qui leur est faite à poursuivre de carrières aussi brillantes, promises pour aider le développement du continent africain. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, j'ai maintenant l'insigne honneur d'inviter très respectueusement Son Excellence le Président Idriss Déby Itno, Président en exercice de l'UIA, et Son Excellence Madame Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma a procédé à la remise du prestigieux prix africain de la science et de la technologie Kwame Nkrumah aux heureux lauréats. Comme il a été dit, le prix comporte un chèque de $100 000 à chacun des lauréats. Monsieur le Président. Le chèque. Je vais vous appeler. Oui, oui, je vais vous appeler. Attendez, je vais vous appeler pour le faire ensemble. Je vais vous l'appeler. Le deuxième récipiendaire, oui, c'est bon. La présidente. Avec votre permission, avant la photo de groupe, je voudrais maintenant inviter Madame Kristalina Georgieva, vice-présidente de la Commission de l'Union européenne en charge des ressources humaines, à féliciter les heureux lauréats. Non, it's okay. Je vous remercie. Enfin, avant de terminer, le moment est maintenant venu pour moi de vous permettre d'entendre le mot de remerciement des lauréats qui sera prononcé par le professeur Nyonkong au nom des deux lauréats.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I was given strict instructions to talk for 2 minutes and no more, so you are safe with me. On behalf of Professor Oprah and I wish to thank the AU for the award. It's not about the checks, as they'll become handy, but it's about the fact that the AU appreciates science and technology and research. If we are appreciated in our own continent, the rest of the world has no choice but to accept African science. Thank you, AU, for what you've done. On a personal note, I would like to thank the country where I come from, South Africa, for investing in science. They have a lot of other commitments, lack of housing, name it, they have it, but they have put aside money for science. What I'm saying to them is, please continue, don't stop, and do more. What I'm also saying to those countries that have acknowledged the importance of science and technology, because there can be no true development without investment in science and technology. What I'm saying to those countries is that who have made it, who understand this concept, to please help other African countries to understand the importance of science and technology. What does the award mean to me in particular? It means AU encourages science and technology on the continent. It means the member states of AU encourage science and technology in their own countries, and it means those member states are going to put in more effort and more money into science and no matter how poor a country is, science and technology should always remain one of the main criteria in their policies, and a little bit of money. Otherwise, what has happened is that I call our scientists refugees of science. They are all over the world. They are not recognized as refugees. Their brains are good, but they are all over the world to try to implement their policies. And also, if our African countries don't contribute to science and technology in the individual countries, what it means is that we get funding from all other agents. So we cannot do the policies and the development that is relevant to Africa. We have to do the research that is relevant somewhere else. So unless our countries are serious about implementing science and technology policies and funding in Africa, we will be doing work for other people. Our brains will be used for development of others. So I urge all our leaders to please remember this. Yes, research and science and technology, they take a long time. But let me tell you, it's not that long. South Africa didn't start that long, but the products are already showing. It means that it can be done. It also means that there will be brain gain rather than brain loss. I know we are often, there is a negative in South Africa, always worrying about that we have brain loss. I actually believe in science and technology, we have brain gain, because we have put the right policies in place for this to happen. And also, if our countries and our governments are involved in funding us, no matter how little, we can begin to do research within Africa. At the moment, most our researchers, they can only work with outside Europe, America. We don't work together in Africa, but we have begun to do that. North, west, east, south, we have begun to work together. And we will come into our governments to say, we need a little bit of help because we want to solve African problems by African researchers in Africa. Thank you very much, AU. Thank you.
Sorry. Ainsi, avec ce message que vous avez vu très engagé en faveur de la science, la technologie et l'innovation, se termine cette cérémonie solennelle de remise du prix africain Kwame Nkrumah, mais marque également le lancement pour l'édition 2016. Alors aux scientifiques africains, le départ est donné. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Le présentateur. Je voudrais au professeur Tabelou et Opara de féliciter et de remercier à votre nom, à vous à tous, mesdames, messieurs les chefs d'État et chefs de délégation. Et les encourager, surtout, d'autres talents, d'autres compétences africaines qui peuvent faire avancer la cause du continent. Cela dit, Excellences, chefs d'État et chefs de gouvernement, chefs de délégation, distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, je rappelle que cette séance maintenant est une séance à huis clos. Vous avez vu tous le programme, mais nous avons pris un peu de retard par rapport à notre programme. Donc, si vous ne voyez pas d'inconvénient, nous allons suspendre la séance actuelle et reprendre à huis clos nos travaux à 17h. Si vous ne voyez pas d'inconvénient, donc, ok, c'est conclu à 17h, donc, la reprise, à 17h.
Le déjeuner allemand offert par le Premier ministre de la République fédérale d'Éthiopie, je voudrais bien prier leurs excellences, les chefs d'État et de délégation, à se retrouver dans la salle VIP derrière le podium. Les autres invités sont priés de se rendre dans la salle polyvalente en passant par les deux portes sur ma droite. Sur invitation, les deux portes à droite pour les détenteurs de cartes d'invitation.
People of Africa must continue to own Agenda 2063. This positive narrative of an Africa that is rising is, however, severely battered by the terrorist attacks against defenseless and innocent civilians. Industrialization is now the theme, and move away from the export of raw materials, adding value to the raw materials, building industries, little industries in our country. It is only then that we can talk about the awakening and rising of this African giant that has been asleep for far too long.